Phil here from Wings of Pegasus and welcome to another video. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So tonight we are going to be jumping into my interview with legendary vocalist Jeff Scott Soto, and we talk about lots of different things including authentic vocal and what I do on the channel here. So let's jump straight into it. Hello.
Hey, how are ya?
Yeah, good thanks. How are you doing?
It's another day in paradise here in LA.
You're busy all the time, doing many different things, and it's great to be able to actually catch up with you and have a chat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because we had a chat over Instagram, I think probably last year, over lots of different things to do with, vocals and,
Sure.
some performances not being really what they are, and then about, pitch correction and auto-tune and...
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it'd be great to pick your brain, but also to get your opinion on different things. But
oh, absolutely, yeah.
Also about how you personally approach your singing and
my process.
Your process and how things change. Inevitably,
Sure.
Throughout the years.
Well, the good part of discussing directly with me is I do all my own studio work. I mean, when I'm doing my sessions, doing my vocals, it's right here. I'm just doing everything right here in front of me, and I don't have to send it out and have somebody process it or do. If anything's processed or done, it's done by me.
Yeah.
So I know exactly what's going on in the final result, and then no surprises later. There was one time a long time ago. I'm like, why did you take the end of a vocal line from somewhere else and place it there? It doesn't fit. It sounds like a little squiggle wiggle, and it sounds like a completely awful punch in. And they said, I didn't do that. I used it exactly as you sent it. No way, you did not use it as I sent it.
Yeah. And when I'm looking at vocals in detail on my channel, when you start isolating vocals, that kind of thing really sticks out, where there's been a drop in and you can kind of hear that the singer they know they're doing a drop in, so their breathing totally changes because they think, I'm ending here, I'm not getting ready for the next phrase, and
exactly.
It just sounds really dodgy.
And you don't even hear. I mean, it's strange for me. I've always been a kind of singer that never wanted to have the breath sounds. It used to drive me mad when I hear somebody like before they sing and then they finish the line with the exhale. It's like I've always been a quiet entrance and quiet exit kind of singer. I've been marked at times for it's too punched in, it's too perfect, and we'll get into all that because I was always a stickler for making sure it wasn't too perfect, because then you're expected to do it live like that, and I don't want the pressure of I can't do live what I can do in the studio. So I always left it a little loosey-goosey, and the phrasing maybe a little behind the beat or whatever. So it's not pitch perfect in every sense, and synchronized, etc. You listen to old Mariah Carey, it's just impossible to replicate that live.
Yeah, it's setting that bar at an impossible level.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the other thing is that when you're just doing it naturally and authentically, it means that you're going to be getting a true representation of the artist live. And
sure.
I'm sure that when people hear it live, nobody's thinking, oh, hang on, he came in 5 milliseconds early with that phrase.
Yeah.
Nobody's...
You would.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I stand corrected. But yeah, I think everyone's just going for that experience. And yeah, the genuine artistry that is on show.
I've been back and forth with the process and my natural tenure of how I'm doing certain things in the studio. For instance, of course, when you have that really hard popping P, especially in a softer moment that you don't have a lot of drums and bass and everything kind of blanketing it. Of course, I've done the turn the head right as you're saying the puh, and so it doesn't attack the capsule so aggressively. Or you change it to more of a buh sound, and it's softer, but then you're hearing that you're not saying the word plant. It sounds like blant or whatever the word is. So obviously too much compression, I'm against that as well, because it sucks the life out of the performance. You don't hear any dynamic range in terms of the actual performance. So yeah, it for the most part, if I'm recording something and I'm noticing it's just nonstop showing up on the actual song or on the recording, I'll just back off this way. If I have to do and I plant, and I'll just naturally pull away. Live is a different animal because, as I've seen so many singers, they'll be singing and they're basically moving the microphone as they're singing. Some of them, it seems like if they're pitchy or if they're not hitting the notes, they want to make sure the microphone's far enough away that you're not hearing that imperfection.
Yeah.
Some of them just naturally do it. They feel if certain notes are being pegged harder, they just pull away. You don't have to do that. That's why you have a sound man. Let the person who's running your sound deal with that issue. You deal with the performance. And in the old days, I would be more cognizant of that until I started working with the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. And our founder, fearless leader, Mr. Paul O'Neill, who started he founded the whole thing, he would tell me at rehearsals, I don't want to see that microphone away from your lips. I don't care. I want you to eat the mic. If it's soft, if it's aggressive, that microphone stays right there because I want every nuance. I would rather our sound person deal with how they dynamically correct it than you to feel like you dynamically have to correct it, because in the front, it's just like, yeah. You're having too many differences in the range and the volume of the things that you're projecting.
I think that's maybe an area where singers, I've seen it in lots of performances where it's almost now like a subconscious thing that singers have done so much that they'll automatically almost move it away from their mouth at different times. And yeah, of course, there's always the danger of it's almost like their voice is passing you by just every time it's in front of their mouth, and then you miss all the other parts. So yeah,
I'm a loud singer as well. I when I sing, it's very my dynamics live are not as great as when you're thinking about it. You're actually performing something in the studio, and you want the dynamics to come in and out and change, varying your performance. But live, I'm not even thinking about technique. I'm thinking only about performance. I'm thinking about how I'm moving, if I'm moving too much, if I have enough breath to get to the next lines. I'm thinking more of that than I'm thinking, oh, make sure you don't overemphasize a certain vowel sound or consonant sound. And I've come to that point, especially now in my life. I call it lazy, but I literally just go up there and do what I do in terms of not thinking too much about what it sounds like up front. Obviously, of course, it needs to be in key, it needs to be in pitch, but I've never, ever, ever, ever used auto-tune live. I refuse to do it. I would rather bluff or change the notes the way my Lord and Savior, Freddie Mercury, used to do when it was too high to replicate what he did in the studio. I would rather go around and skirt around the actual notes and find something within the actual key or structure of the song that still works and fits, than to try and push something that's just not going to happen, or that I can't really, if it's a complicated melody that I can't pull it off live. I'd rather just alter it than to have to deal with my voice basically all that crazy stuff that you hear in today's pop,
Yeah, it's always the risk if you're relying on technology. Then if the technology goes wrong, it's like, well, where do you go from that point? But
sure,
I mean, I agree totally with what you're saying, and for me that's a creative process as well by the artist, and like you said with Freddie Mercury, where he navigates his way around the melodies of the song, and everyone knows the melody, but because he's changed that, it means that again you're getting a unique version of that particular song on that night, and however his voice was feeling on that night, it then edited the melody of it. So it means potentially you can go and watch the same song 5 times and you get 5 different versions of it, which
different versions, exactly.
Yeah, which I think is great. It's just such a shame.
And I'm not taking it away from those who use it. There might even be some that don't realize it's being used.
Yeah.
You might have been microscoping someone's performance that was just doing what they're doing and thinking it sounds fine, it sounds great, when the sound person might be actually manipulating it unbeknownst to them. Yeah. So that could be one thing. But again, if you're using it, if you're willingly using it, I mean, God bless you. You got to do what you got to do to get through it. This is just my own personal preference. I'd rather not. I'd rather go and skirt around it than to either use some kind of auto-tune apparatus or to use any tracks that would be basically I'd be able to rest while that portion came out. I don't want the stress and the pressure of pulling the mic away before the vocal line ends. And I will admit, I have done it. I had to do it because back in 2002, I had vocal nodules and I needed surgery. At the time, I was with a group called the Boogie Nights. It was a regular cover gig that was booked throughout the entire year. I think I had maybe 2 weeks off a year. We were doing 3 or 4 nights a week for a solid year, except for my 2 weeks off on holidays. And at one point, I developed nodules. I needed to get the surgery, but I couldn't get the time off. So while I was getting ready for the surgery, they told me to calm down with the singing. After the surgery, I needed to take a month off as well. Yeah. And so management said, maybe there's a way you can pre-record your vocals. You've done it a million times. You've done this show for 6 years or whatever it is, and you pretty much are consistent with the way you pull it off live. So if you record it in the studio over tracks, in your head, your muscle memory will know where all those little segments that you do live that are different from the originals. So that's the only time, and I felt so awful, and I almost felt like I was lying to the audience. I felt like I was lying to myself because I was just going up there and but I had to rest this in order to get the surgery. So that was the only time it's like 2001, maybe 2000, something like that. I had to actually go through that process before I got the surgery.
Yeah, I think it's an important thing to look at and to understand that some people, I mean, there are artists who use auto-tune as part of their sound, and artistically, that's what they do. And there are some artists that use it who say, well, I can't sing, so I use auto-tune in order to get my voice to hit the notes that I want them to hit. And it's very much an open thing, and their audience knows, and they know. And, you know, like you say there, even though it's something that you know that you had to do, and it was an extreme situation of actually you know, needing surgery and everything that comes with that, but you still felt like, oh, I'm doing something either, you know, dishonest or misleading people or anything like that. But in my opinion, it's when people aren't open about it and are doing it, and then, you know, I've seen it with people saying, oh, wow, what an amazing performance. And the artists themselves may know that they didn't actually do it, but they're taking all of the compliments, and they're not saying, oh, well, thanks for the compliments, but I had to do this because of that. Right. I think that...
Well, the funny thing is the admission of guilt on some of the videos you've done, or when they actually ask you to pull them down, or they pull them down for you, that pretty much tells you... And again, what you're providing, the service you're providing is not necessarily one to take anyone down. And you say it constantly in all your videos. You're not doing it manipulatively. You're not trying to open up a Pandora's box to somebody that's lying to people. But people are asking you, can you check this out? Can you microscope this? And with your technology and your knowledge, can you find out if this is what it is or what I think it is? And all you're doing is an honest assessment of what you're hearing, with your, you know, your own level of knowledge and what you're doing. And so I can see where it comes across as you're just trying to, you know, they always say anytime somebody's up there, somebody's always trying to pull them down. You're not doing that at all.
Yeah, and I do make it quite clear in my videos as well. I mean, it's all objective, but when you do get to a certain stage, like you've already touched on, where you said about artists potentially not even knowing that they have been pitch corrected or auto-tuned, because they might be on tour and they might just be doing their shows and show after show. And, you know, as is the case commonly, there'll be a particular show or maybe 2 or 3 shows that are focused on for the DVD release, and that will be cut together. And the singer, they know that they sing live. They know they don't use auto-tune, but they're not necessarily in the loop when that audio gets taken from the desk and now, you know, edited and mixed and potentially pitch corrected, and then it's released. And the problem, I think, with a lot of the performances is the level of work. It's almost poor workmanship, I would say, from someone who's listened to music for a very long time and listened to a lot of singers, that you can tell straight away that that's not a human voice. You know, that's being calibrated to A440.
Yes.
So that's also the problem, because then the artist has got to say, well, no, I do sing live. But they say, well, how do you explain this then? He said, well,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, well, no, that wasn't me. That, I don't know how that's happened. So, yeah, yeah, it's very difficult then for the artist.
And now it makes sense as well. And something you don't really see anymore. You don't even hear about anymore. Live albums. Back in the 70s, especially when live albums were big, Frampton and Queen Live Killers and Kiss Alive, Kiss Alive 2, all those live albums, you'd be damned if you find any that weren't fixed in the studio. The singer or the guitar player had to fix certain things, especially if it was only one show recorded from.
Yeah.
Back in the day, they used to take songs from different shows, different nights. I like the way I sang that one that night. I like the way I played one that night. Therefore, you have choices. If you're able to record so many multiple shows, you can have choices of which performance. And once you put it seamlessly into an album, they don't know it's from different nights, as long as it was somewhat recorded within the same specter. Gone are those days, because now you're releasing the one night only in Paris. So, you know, the event, the main event in this particular tour is one night. And if you didn't nail everything, you're going to have to fix things. It's just a given. I had this album. I had this band called Soul Circus with Neal Schon from Journey. And the one night we decided we're going to record the show, DVD, and the whole 9 yards at the Fillmore in San Francisco is the night we had multiple problems, technical issues. My voice was there were just major F-ups here, left, right, and center between us all. I'm not going to point any fingers, because you naturally have flubs here and there. But in the end, we walked away going, that's never going to be heard or seen unless we go in and fix it.
Yeah.
We didn't want to go in and fix it, so it basically just lied. It lay in hard drives. Here we are 20 some odd years later, and nobody will ever hear this show, because it would be way too much to repair and then to edit and trim the fat of all these delays and all these different things to make an album out of it. And it's almost pointless at that point.
Yeah, and it's really difficult that nowadays with the internet, as soon as something is released, that's released forever. So there's this pressure for everything to be so perfect that I think a lot of singers, they might not necessarily want to apply anything to their voice, but they think, well, how can I compete with everyone else that is doing it? As soon as they do something live, people say, oh, well, you're not as good as this person because they never miss a note. And they say, well, there's a reason they never miss a note, because they're dragging it to every note in their editing software.
And that's why I love your graphs, because you can see how it's literally like right on the line. There's no movement or swaying, and it's unbelievable that the stuff you've uncovered.
So a huge thank you to Jeff for joining me on the channel, and I hope you guys enjoyed the discussion that we had. And if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys at the next one. Rock!